So welcome to today's deep dive, everyone. Our mission here is to examine this brief but really revealing profile of a Nova Scotia business. They're called Isaiah's Immaculate Interiors Painting. On paper, the source text just outlines a local painting and refinishing company.
Right. They do interior painting, exterior work, deck staining, spray finishes, and some restoration projects too.
Exactly. But if you look closer, it serves as this absolutely fascinating micro case study. We are going to explore how modern businesses can still build this lasting, unshakable momentum the old-fashioned way, really leaning into what the source text actually calls the artisan's spirit.
Yeah, and the source material is compelling precisely because it outlines a blueprint for economic survival that runs, well, kind of counter to almost everything we're taught about modern business.
Oh, totally.
Like we are constantly told that success requires massive scale, right? Venture capital, frictionless transactions. But this text suggests an alternative, a really strategic focus on presentation, meticulous quality, and a long-term vision that's deeply rooted in the local community.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the text explicitly credits the momentum of this Nova Scotia company to three very specific elements. It says hard work, good service, and pride in the details.
Yeah, that pride in the details is key.
It really is. The source emphasizes their commitment to clean presentation and treating customers properly. I was thinking about this, and it's sort of like the difference between cooking this complex, beautiful homemade meal versus just grabbing fast food.
Right, it's a great analogy, actually.
Thanks. But, I do want to push back a little here. In today's world of instant gratification and app-based gig work, what does building old-fashioned momentum actually look like in practice for a local tradesperson? Because the gig economy worker is basically renting the transaction, right? They execute a quick task, get paid, and disappear.
Yeah, exactly. But what's fascinating here is that an artisan like Isaiah's seems to be building equity in the neighborhood. The text talks about building something real for the long term.
Right.
And that artisan spirit isn't just about the physical paint on the wall. It's about meticulous presentation and quality being used as the primary tools for long-term survival. Every meticulously painted living room is basically a brick in a reputation that pays dividends down the line.
That makes a lot of sense.
That concept of building equity is just crucial here, because in a standardized, volume-driven economy, the worker and the consumer are totally disconnected. It is a one-off exchange.
You never see them again.
Right. But the artisan spirit recognizes that visible care put into the work creates an anchor in a localized market.
I hear that, but let's be real for a second. Let's look at the actual economics of this. If a massive corporate franchise can come into your house and say, spray finish your kitchen cabinets in half the time for 30% less cost, isn't this artisan spirit just romanticizing a highly inefficient business model?
I can see why you'd ask that.
Because, why wouldn't a rational homeowner just take the cheaper, faster bid and be done with it?
Well, because a rational homeowner intuitively understands that in the home services sector, the cheapest bid often carries the highest hidden costs.
Oh, right. Yeah.
A giant franchise operates on volume. Their whole economic incentive is to get in, apply the product, and get out as fast as humanly possible to move to the next job.
Just churning through clients.
Exactly. And that model relies on standardized conditions. But a home isn't standardized. Wood breathes, older houses settle, previous paint layers react completely unpredictably.
So the speed actually becomes a huge liability.
Precisely. The artisan is basically weaponizing quality against that speed. The giant franchise might skip the 3 days of tedious sanding and prep work because, well, it slows down their volume.
Right, they don't have time for that.
But the artisan takes pride in those unseen details. They know that improper prep means the paint will just peel off in 2 years. So the homeowner isn't just paying for the final coat of paint.
They're paying for the foundation.
Exactly. They're paying for the invisible foundation that ensures the finish actually lasts. That visible care fundamentally changes the customer's behavior afterward.
And that behavioral shift is what drives the economics of a local business, right? Here's where it gets really interesting. The source text explicitly credits their growth to people sharing their work. Friends posting the page, local people making recommendations.
Word of mouth is incredibly powerful.
It is. And we see this happen all the time, but the mechanics behind it are so specific. Think about it. If I recommend a mediocre restaurant to a friend, The worst case scenario is they have a bland dinner.
Right. It's not a deal.
The stakes are practically zero. But if I recommend a contractor...
The stakes are astronomical.
Exactly.
A bad contractor can cost a homeowner tens of thousands of dollars, ruin their property, create massive liabilities, and just cause months of immense stress.
It's a nightmare.
It really is. Therefore, recommending a tradesperson is not a casual act. It is a high-stakes transfer of social currency.
Wow, social currency. I love that phrasing. So when a local person in Nova Scotia shares the page for Isaiah's, they're essentially putting their own social capital on the line. They're telling the network, hey, I have vetted this risk and you are safe here.
Yes, exactly.
And we, as consumers, we just tune out glossy, highly produced advertisements from massive corporations because we know those ads are just paid attempts to buy our attention. But a recommendation from a peer, that is a real reputational vouch.
And that vouch dramatically lowers the business's customer acquisition cost. Like, a giant corporation has to spend, 20% of its revenue constantly bombarding you with ads?
Yeah.
Because they burn through clients and need to generate new leads. Mm-hmm. But an artisan in the building phase, as the text describes it, reallocates that marketing budget into the time spent doing the job perfectly.
Right.
The clean presentation and the pride in the details is the marketing. It turns the customer into an active advocate.
Which really speaks to the magnetic appeal of this building phase. The source draws a very sharp, intentional contrast between being a giant corporation and a real Nova Scotia company growing one customer and one recommendation at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think we crave that hyper-local connection? Why do we as consumers actively want to participate in that phase?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, it really comes down to the psychology of patronage.
Okay, tell me more about that.
A giant corporation has already won. Giving them your money feels like paying a utility bill. It is an extraction of value from your community. But when you engage with a local business that is visibly in its building phase, you transition from being a passive consumer to being a patron. You inherently want to root for the underdog.
Oh, wow. So you actually become a participant in their narrative.
You do. You are investing in the community fabric. When friends share the page for Isaiah's, they're essentially saying, I have discovered someone who takes pride in their craft. And by sharing this, I am actively contributing to their success story.
That's powerful.
It is. We are kind of starving for authenticity in this mass-produced world. When we see someone putting genuine visible pride into restoring a deck or perfectly executing an exterior paint job, we are drawn to it. It makes us feel like active participants.
Yeah, it reassures us that humans still care about the physical spaces we inhabit. It's about seeing the human hand behind the work. The artisan leaves a fingerprint of quality that a profit-driven, volume-based corporation usually tries to erase, in the name of algorithmic efficiency.
Exactly.
And that fingerprint perfectly bridges us into what I think is the psychological core of this entire source text. It addresses what happens when a stranger comes into your personal space to do a job.
It is the ultimate vulnerability.
Truly. The text explicitly states that when somebody works on your home, 3 things matter above all else: trust, communication, and pride in the final result.
Holy Trinity.
Right. I look at those 3 elements as the absolute foundation of the service industry. And the source notes that businesses that genuinely care about these 3 things, they stand out over time.
Because they are the structural killers of the artisan spirit.
Yeah.
You really cannot have long-term momentum without all 3 of those acting in concert.
So what does this all mean in practice? Let's zero in on one of those pillars: communication. I want to pose a hypothetical scenario, and I want you, the listener, to really think about the mechanics of this. Let's say a painter comes into your house and delivers an absolutely flawless, magazine cover quality spray finish on your kitchen cabinets.
Sounds good so far.
Right, technically perfect. But throughout the week, they showed up unannounced, they left their equipment scattered across your dining room table overnight, they played loud music while you were trying to work, and they were dismissive or gruff when you asked a basic question about the timeline.
Oh, that sounds awful.
Exactly. Does that technically perfect finish still result in a bad experience? Is clear communication actually just as vital as the technical skill?
This raises an important question, because the intuitive answer for a lot of purely task-oriented workers is that the final product is the only thing that matters.
Right. The cabinets look great, so who cares?
But in the context of the home, the answer is absolutely, unequivocally yes. It's a bad experience. Technical skill is merely the baseline expectation. It is only 50% of the job.
Only 50%. I mean, that seems incredibly low for a trade that is purely physical, don't you think?
It is a physical trade, yes, but it occurs within an emotional environment. The other 50% of the job is emotional management.
Oh, emotional management. I like that.
Yeah, because you are disrupting someone's sanctuary. The artisan spirit that the source title refers to is actually the precise intersection of all three values: trust, communication, and pride. If a worker has immense pride in their technical skill but zero communication skills, they alienate the homeowner. The space just feels hijacked.
And the homeowner spends the entire week stressed out,
Right.
walking on eggshells in their own house, wondering what is happening.
Exactly. And that stress fundamentally taints the final product. Even if those kitchen cabinets look beautiful, every time the homeowner looks at them, they will subconsciously associate that kitchen with the anxiety and frustration of the process.
That makes total sense.
On the flip side, if you have great communication but no pride in the result, well, the client feels cheated.
Right.
And if you have both, but you aren't trustworthy, like maybe the pricing is opaque or you cut corners where the client can't see, the entire relationship inevitably crumbles.
So when the source text highlights Isaiah's focus on these three things, they aren't just selling interior painting or exterior restoration. They are selling something much more valuable. They are selling anxiety reduction.
That is exactly the product. What we are really talking about here is not just the restoration of a physical deck or the refinishing of a living room wall. It is the restoration of consumer trust through transparent communication and immense pride in the product.
Wow, the restoration of consumer trust.
Yeah.
That is a profound way to look at local commerce. It perfectly explains the compounding returns of this business model. When you find someone who actually respects the friction of your home, who communicates clearly about when they will arrive, and who delivers beautiful work, you don't just want to hire them again.
No, you want everyone to know.
You feel a moral obligation to tell your neighbors about them. You want to protect your friends from the bad actors by pointing them directly to the artisan.
And that dynamic is the literal definition of building momentum the old-fashioned way. It is a slow burn initially. It takes time to build that reputation brick by brick.
For sure.
But once that foundation of client loyalty is established, it becomes practically indestructible. A giant corporation is fragile because it relies on constant advertising spend to replace the clients it alienates. But the artisan is robust because they have built a self-sustaining network of advocates.
We've spent this deep dive breaking down the anatomy of a growing enterprise, moving far beyond just a list of services, the interior, exterior, deck staining, spray finishes, to uncover the really profound economic and psychological mechanisms underpinning how that work is delivered.
Yeah, and it reveals that the artisan spirit is not just a nice romantic idea. It is a highly effective, deeply pragmatic business strategy for anyone operating in an environment that requires high trust.
So, to distill the core takeaways for you listening today, what this profile of Isaiah's Immaculate Interiors Painting demonstrates is that sustainable success in our hyper-fast, highly automated, modern era can still be found by deliberately slowing down.
Absolutely.
It can be found by respecting the physical reality of the work, prioritizing clean presentation, communicating radically clearly, and above all, respecting the customer's space and time. You do not have to be a giant corporation to make a massive impact. In fact, being in that local building phase is your greatest strategic asset because it invites your community to mitigate their own risk by supporting you and growing with you.
And it's a blueprint that scales far beyond just the home service industry.
It really does. Now, I want to ensure you have all the practical, factual data from the source material we explored today. Because, hey, if you are located in Nova Scotia and you find yourself in need of interior painting, exterior work, deck standing, or professional refinishing services, you now understand the philosophy driving this company. You can reach out to Isaiah's Immaculate Interiors Painting by calling them directly at 902-300-2707. Let me say that again. That's 902-300-2707. Or you can just email them at hat2002@gmail.com.
And if there's one core slogan to take away from this entire analysis, it is the really powerful closing mantra provided right at the end of the text. Support local, build real.
Support local, build real. It is incredibly concise, but after looking at the economics of trust and social currency, it just holds so much weight.
It really does.
And that actually brings me to a final thought I want to leave you with today. We started this deep dive talking about the frictionless, anonymous world we live in and how inviting someone into your home breaks that mold. We looked at how an artisan uses quality and communication to reduce anxiety and build equity in a neighborhood.
Right.
But I want you to look at your own life right now. Look at your own career, or maybe a project you're working on right now, or even just how you collaborate with your peers. If you took a step back from the modern rush for instant, algorithmically optimized gratification, and instead applied this exact same artisan spirit to your own environment.
Oh, that's an interesting thought.
Right. Like if you focus deeply on building trust as your premium currency, on clear emotional management through communication, and took immense pride in the tiny, unseen minutia of your work rather than just rushing to cross the finish line, what could you build real in your own community today? Who knows? You might just find that the old-fashioned way provides the exact momentum you've been looking for.